The air hums with secrets, heavy and unspoken as the firelight flickers across their faces. You can feel it, can't you? The pull of something ancient, something that clings to the bones of a place long after the living have fled. Liberty Street wasn't just a house, it was a wound in the world, bleeding memories that refused to fade. In the summer of 2020, I sat with my in-laws on their Washington farm, the night alive with the scent of burning cedar and the distant howl of coyotes. The fire crackled, casting shadows that danced like specters on the barn walls. My brother-in-law, his voice low and eager, spun tales of ghosts and folklore, each story weaving a tighter web of unease. I leaned back, the warmth of the flames brushing my skin, but a deeper chill stirred within me, a memory that never slept. My wife, sensing the moment, broke the rhythm of the tales with a sudden piercing command. "Show them the scar." Their eyes widened, confusion etching their faces. I hesitated, the weight of years pressing against my chest. Slowly, I lifted my shirt, revealing the mark beneath my left pec, a jagged, pale crescent, unmistakable in its violence. It wasn't just a scar. It was a signature carved by something that thrived in the dark heart of Liberty Street. Their gasps hung in the air, sharp and raw. "What happened?" they asked, their voices trembling on the edge of dread. I met their gaze, my own steady but haunted. "Liberty Street," I said, and the name alone summoned a flood of images. Doors that moved without touch, eyes that glowed in the void, and a house that breathed with malice. That scar wasn't just skin deep. It was a tether to a decade of terror, from 1994 to 2006, when my family called that cursed place home. Liberty Street was meant to be our sanctuary, a dream woven from hope and hard work. Instead, it became our prison, its walls alive with whispers that clawed at our sanity. Every night my dreams drag me back to its shadowed halls, where I'm forever running, forever trapped. Feel that weight now, the way it presses on your chest, urging you to look closer, to see what lingers in the dark. The story began with a realtor named Chris and a man who laughed at ghosts until Liberty Street taught him fear. My mother, her voice breaking, told him why we were selling. "It's haunted," she said, and he scoffed, boasting of dozens of houses sold without a single spectral encounter. But his first open house shattered that bravado. Within an hour, he fled, vowing never to enter alone again. Imagine standing in a silent house, the air thick with a presence you can't name, and knowing it's watching you. Liberty Street didn't just haunt us, it marked us, body and soul. That scar on my chest? It's a reminder that some wounds never heal, that some places hold you long after you've escaped. As I lowered my shirt, the firelight dimmed, and the night seemed to lean closer, hungry for the rest of the tale. You're here now, bound to this story, ready to step into the shadows of Liberty Street. In the spring of 2004, we knew Liberty Street had to go. The house had become a cage, its walls pulsing with memories of terror that clung to us like damp rot. My mother, her face etched with exhaustion, made the call to sell. She reached out to Rick, a realtor who'd gone to high school with her, his voice warm with nostalgia over the phone. But when he saw the numbers, the paperwork, the weight of what we were asking, he backed away, his excuses thin. "It's not for me," he said, and passed us to Chris, a young realtor with a spark in his eye and a hunger for proving himself. Step into his shoes now. Feel the confidence that blinds you to the shadows waiting. Chris was different, brash, untested, his suit crisp, and his smile too wide. He met my mother at a diner, the clatter of plates and the hum of conversation a stark contrast to the truth she was about to lay bare. She sat across from him, her hands trembling around a coffee mug, the steam curling like ghosts in the air. "Why sell?" Chris asked, his pen poised over a notepad, his tone light, almost playful. My mother's eyes darkened, her voice low but steady. "It's haunted, Chris. Liberty Street is haunted." The words hung between them, heavy and undeniable. Feel that moment, the way truth cuts through denial, sharp as a blade. Chris laughed, a sharp, dismissive sound that echoed in the diner's buzz. "Haunted? Come on, I've sold dozens of houses. People say that all the time. Creaky floors, old pipes, you name it. I've heard every ghost story and not one's ever touched me." His confidence was a shield, polished and unblemished. He leaned back, arms crossed, daring her to prove him wrong. My mother didn't flinch. She told him of the scar on my chest, the nights we barricaded ourselves in her room, the way the house seemed to breathe with malice. Chris's smile faltered, but he waved it off. "I don't believe in ghosts," he declared, sealing his fate. They agreed to move forward, but my mother's warning lingered, a seed of doubt planted deep. You can't outrun what you don't believe in, can you? A week later, Chris scheduled the first open house. He arrived at Liberty Street on a crisp Sunday morning, the neighborhood quiet, the elementary school across the street empty. The house loomed before him, its pale siding deceptively ordinary under the spring sun. He unlocked the front door, the key cold in his hand, and stepped inside. The air was stale, thick with the scent of dust and something sharper. Alcohol, faint but unmistakable, though no bottle had ever been opened there. He set up his signs, arranged brochures on the kitchen counter, and settled on the patio, waiting for buyers. Imagine that silence, the way it presses against your ears, daring you to listen closer. The house didn't wait long to respond. First it was subtle, a faint shift in the light, a shadow that seemed to linger too long in the corner of his eye. Then came the sounds. Footsteps, deliberate and heavy, moving through the living room. Chris froze, his pulse quickening. "Hello?" he called, his voice swallowed by the stillness. No answer, but the footsteps continued, crossing the kitchen now, closer. He stood, his chair scraping the patio floor, and stepped inside. The kitchen was empty, the brochures untouched, but the air felt charged, like the moment before a storm. Breaks. Feel that dread, the way it coils in your gut, whispering that you're not alone. Then a door opened somewhere in the house, not swung wide, but eased apart, as if inviting him to follow. Chris's breath caught, his bravado crumbling. The footsteps returned, now right in front of him, invisible but undeniable, moving toward him with purpose. He backed away, his heart hammering, until his back hit the counter. The presence stopped, inches from him, the air growing colder, heavier. He didn't see it, but he felt it, a gaze that bored into him, stripping away his disbelief. You're trapped now, caught in Liberty Street's gaze, and it knows your fear. Chris didn't wait for more. He grabbed his keys, locked the door with trembling hands, and fled to his car. The open house ended in under an hour, no buyers ever arriving. When we called him later, his voice was hollow, stripped of its earlier swagger. "I'll never go back there alone," he said. "You were right, there's something in that house." He refused to share details at first, but eventually he admitted the truth. Liberty Street had shown him its power, and he'd barely escaped its grasp. For the next year, as the house sat on the market, Chris only entered with others, his fear a testament to the terror we'd lived with for a decade. Liberty Street doesn't let you forget. It marks you, and you carry it forever. My family had moved into the house months earlier, dreaming of a fresh start. But the renovations, new walls, a kitchen, a bedroom for my parents, seemed to awaken something ancient within its bones. The house, once quiet, now pulsed with a restless energy, its nights alive with unseen forces that tested our sanity. My mother bore the brunt of this awakening, her courage fraying under the weight of terrors she couldn't name. Step into her world now. Feel the isolation that cloaks you, the dread that lingers in every shadow. The renovations were chaotic, dust and tools scattered across the house, the living room serving as my parents' temporary bedroom, while Rachel and I slept in our new rooms. My father, a heavy sleeper, could slumber through a storm, his snores a steady rhythm in the night. But my mother lay awake, her eyes fixed on the ceiling, the darkness pressing against her like a living thing. The house came alive after sunset, its silence shattered by sounds that defied reason. Cabinets in the unfinished kitchen would swing open, their hinges groaning under an invisible hand. Drawers rattled, their contents shifting as if searched by unseen fingers. Footsteps, heavy and deliberate, paced the halls, never pausing, never revealing their source. Imagine that sound, the way it echoes in your chest, urging you to hide. My mother's heart raced with each disturbance, her breath shallow as she clutched the blankets, pulling them over her head like a child. She whispered to herself, a desperate mantra, "Ghosts aren't real, ghosts aren't real." But the house mocked her denial, its noises growing bolder. A thud would echo from the kitchen, sharp and sudden, as if a pot had fallen from the counter. Then, a cascade of smaller sounds, spoons clattering, plates shifting, would follow. A symphony of chaos that seemed to taunt her. She'd lie there, trembling, her eyes stinging with unshed tears, praying for dawn to break the spell. Feel her fear, the way it traps you, alone in a house that watches. One night, the disturbances grew unbearable. My mother, unable to endure another moment of torment, rose from the makeshift bed, her bare feet cold against the floorboards. The living room was dim, lit only by the faint glow of a street lamp filtering through the curtains. She moved toward the kitchen, her hands shaking, determined to confront whatever lurked there. The air was thick, heavy with a presence that made her skin prickle. As she reached the threshold, a cabinet door swung open before her, slow and deliberate, revealing nothing but darkness inside. She froze, her breath catching, as footsteps circled her, invisible but close, their rhythm uneven, almost mocking. "You're standing there now, surrounded by shadows, and they know your name." My mother stumbled back, her voice breaking as she called for my father, but his snores continued, unbroken. The isolation was crushing, a weight that pressed her to the floor, her knees buckling as she sank against the wall. Tears streamed down her face, hot and silent, as the house continued its relentless assault. Drawers sliding, footsteps pacing, a low hum like distant laughter filling the air. She curled into herself, the blankets forgotten, her mantra abandoned. The house wasn't just haunted, it was alive, and it wanted her to know it. Some truths break you, don't they? When you see them too clearly. Morning brought no answers, only exhaustion. My mother said nothing of the nights, her face pale but composed as she made breakfast, her hands steadying with effort. My father, oblivious, went about his day, while Rachel and I, too young to understand, played in our rooms, unaware of the terror that stalked our mother. But the nights never relented, each one a battle she fought alone. Years later, she'd confess those moments, her voice trembling, admitting she'd cried herself to sleep, the house's malice a constant companion. Liberty Street had claimed her peace, marking her with a fear she'd carry forever. Some houses don't let you rest. They demand your surrender, and you give it piece by piece. In the summer of 2005, Liberty Street stood empty, its silence a mockery of the terror it had unleashed. My family had fled, living in my grandparents' guest house, but the house still held pieces of us, objects, memories, and evidence of the horrors we'd endured. For years I'd gathered proof of the unseen forces that haunted us, storing it in a brown leather briefcase hidden in the basement. Photographs capturing orbs that danced in the dark, audio tapes filled with disembodied voices, and videos of doors moving without touch, all locked away, secured by a code known only to me and my father. That briefcase was my anchor, a testament to the truth we'd fought to uncover. Hold that image in your mind, the weight of that case, the secrets, guarded. My mother and I returned one last time to retrieve it, driven by a need to reclaim what was ours before the house was sold. The July air was thick, heavy with the scent of sun-baked grass and the faint, sour tang of decay that clung to Liberty Street. We parked in the driveway, the gravel shifting beneath our tires, and approached the house. Its windows stared blankly, reflecting a sky bruised with clouds. The front door resisted as I turned the key, as if the house itself were reluctant to let us in. Inside, the air was stale, pressing against my skin like a damp cloth. Every step echoed in the hollow space, the floorboards groaning under our weight. Feel that stillness, the way it wraps around you, daring you to disturb it. We descended into the basement, the stairs narrow and steep, each step a plunge into darkness. My flashlight, the red mag light that had been my shield through countless nights, cast a thin beam ahead, slicing through the gloom. Its light was my solace, a steady glow that had guided me through the worst of Liberty Street's wrath. The basement was a cavern of shadows, the air cooler but no less oppressive. There, in the corner, sat the briefcase, its leather cracked and dusty, untouched since we'd left it months ago. My heart quickened as I knelt beside it, my fingers tracing the cold metal clasp. You're there now, reaching for answers, but something watches, waiting. I entered the code, the dials turning with a faint resistance, and lifted the lid. The emptiness inside struck me like a blow. The photographs, tapes, videos, gone. Not a single scrap remained, as if the house had swallowed them whole. Only 3 items lay in the barren interior: the mag light, its red body gleaming faintly, the small gray compass, its needle still, and the tape recorder silent and cold. My mother gasped, her hand gripping my shoulder, her nails digging into my skin. "They took it," she whispered, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and resignation. Feel that loss, the way it hollows you out, leaving only questions. The basement seemed to close in around us, the shadows deepening, the air growing heavier. I clutched the mag light, its weight grounding me, a reminder of the nights I'd held it like a talisman against the dark. The house had claimed our evidence, erasing the proof we'd risked so much to gather. It was as if Liberty Street were mocking us, asserting its dominance one final time. We stood there, frozen in the dim light, the silence deafening. My mother's eyes met mine, filled with a weary understanding. "It doesn't want to be remembered," she said, her words barely audible. "You can't fight a house that steals your truth, can you?" We left the briefcase where it lay, taking only the maglite, compass, and recorder. As we climbed the stairs, the house seemed to exhale, a subtle shift in the air that sent a shiver down my spine. Outside, the sunlight felt harsh, alien, as if we'd emerged from a different world. The maglite remained in my hand, its red surface warm from my grip, a symbol of survival, of light in the face of darkness. Those lost tapes and photos were more than evidence. They were pieces of our story, stolen by a house that refused to let go. Liberty Street keeps its secrets, and you carry the weight of what it takes. Liberty Street carried a secret that seeped into our lives without warning, a presence that lingered in the air we breathed. from the early days of 1994, when we first called that house home. An unexplainable scent would invade our senses, sharp and bitter, like a memory from a life we'd never lived. It wasn't just a smell, it was a violation, a reminder that the house held dominion over us. Breathe deeply now, and imagine that scent, how it clings to you, refusing to fade. The first time it happened, I was barely 3, too young to grasp its meaning, but old enough to feel the unease it brought. My family sat in the living room, the television casting a soft glow across the worn carpet. My mother was knitting, her needles moving in a steady rhythm, while my father read a newspaper, the pages rustling faintly. Rachel, my infant sister, slept in her crib nearby, her breaths soft and even. The house felt almost normal, a fragile illusion of peace. Then, without cause, the air shifted, heavy with the acrid bite of alcohol, whiskey, raw and potent, as if a bar had materialized around us. My mother's hands froze, her eyes darting to my father, who lowered his paper, his brow furrowed. "Do you smell that?" she asked, her voice tight, almost accusing. He nodded, his gaze sweeping the room, searching for a source that didn't exist. Feel that moment, the way a familiar space turns alien, betraying you. We didn't drink. My parents, bound by faith, kept no liquor in the house, not even for guests. The kitchen held only juice and water, the cabinets bare of anything stronger, yet the scent was undeniable. So thick it coated my throat, stinging my eyes. My mother rose, her movements sharp, and checked every corner, under the sink, behind the curtains, even the trash can outside. Nothing. The smell vanished as suddenly as it came, leaving only a lingering dread. My father shrugged it off, muttering about old pipes or a neighbor's party, but his voice lacked conviction. My mother's face remained pale, her lips pressed into a thin line. You can't trust a house that lies, can you? Over the years, the scent returned, unbidden and unpredictable. It might strike in the dead of night, waking me from sleep, the air in my room heavy with the ghost of spilled liquor, or it would creep into the kitchen during dinner, turning our meal to ash in our mouths. Sometimes it was faint, a whisper of alcohol that teased the edges of perception. Other times it was overwhelming, as if the house itself were exhaling its secrets. Each time we searched for answers, leaky bottles, spilled cleaners, anything, to explain it away. But Liberty Street offered no clues, only the scent, a taunt from something unseen. Imagine living with that, never knowing when it will strike, always waiting. Years later, when we uncovered the house's history, we learned of an old bar near its original site, a place of raucous nights and forgotten tragedies. The connection chilled me, as if the house carried the bar's echo, its revelry twisted into something darker. My mother would pause whenever the scent returned, her eyes distant, as if seeing a world we couldn't. Rachel and I grew to dread, giving a signal that the house was awake, watching. The scent wasn't just alcohol, it was a presence, a fragment of Liberty Street's soul, marking us as its own. Some smells never leave you. They burrow into your memory, a stain that time can't erase. By the fall of 1994, Liberty Street had woven its shadows into our lives, its darkness a constant companion that Rachel and I, as children, could neither name nor escape. At 3 years old, I sensed it in the way the house seemed to watch us, its gaze heavy and unyielding. Rachel, barely a year younger, felt it too, her small hands clutching mine as we navigated our new home. Our bedrooms, freshly painted and filled with toys, should have been sanctuaries, but they were stages for a silent observer, its presence lurking in every corner. The dark wasn't just absence of light, it was alive and it knew we were afraid. Stand in that room now, feel the weight of unseen eyes, the chill that crawls up your spine. My room was a fortress of blankets piled high to shield me from the night. I'd burrow beneath them, leaving only a sliver for air, my breath warm and rapid against the fabric. Rachel, in her room across the hall, mirrored my fear, her crib a fragile barrier against the unknown. The house grew still after sunset, its quiet a deception that lulled us into uneasy sleep. But the darkness had a pulse, a rhythm that stirred as we drifted off. I'd wake, heart pounding, certain something stood at the foot of my bed, its gaze boring into me. I couldn't see it, but I felt it, a presence that traced my every move as if cataloging my fears. You know that feeling, don't you, when the dark seems to breathe with you? Rachel's fear was raw, her cries piercing the night as she sensed the same watcher. My mother would rush to her, her voice soothing but strained, her own unease betraying her calm. "It's just a dream, Rachel," she'd say, rocking her, but her eyes would dart to the shadows, searching for what she couldn't admit. One night I crept to Rachel's door, my bare feet cold on the floorboards, drawn by her whimpers. The room was dim, lit by a faint nightlight that cast jagged shapes on the walls. Rachel sat upright, her tiny face pale, her eyes fixed on the closet. "It's looking," she whispered, her voice trembling. I followed her gaze, my stomach twisting as the closet door seemed to shift, a sliver of deeper darkness within. See it now, that void where something waits, unblinking. I grabbed Rachel's hand, pulling her to my room, our footsteps muffled but urgent. We huddled under my blankets, her small body trembling against mine, our breaths sinking in fear. The calm house responded, its silence deepening as if pleased by our terror. The feeling of being watched never left, even in the safety of my fortress. Every creak of the house, every shift of light, felt like a signal. The watcher was near, its presence, a weight that pressed us into the mattress. My mother found us there at dawn, curled together, her face softening with pity but hardening with worry. She never spoke of it, but her glances at the dark corners told me she felt it too. Some fears bind you, don't they? Tying you to those who share them. The terror wasn't confined to our rooms. Even in the living room, where my parents slept during the renovations, the watcher followed. My mother would pause during her nightly checks, her hand lingering on our door frames as if sensing the same gaze. My father, untouched by the house's malice, slept on, his ignorance a wedge between them. Rachel and I grew to dread the dark, refusing to cross the hall alone, our fear shaping our childhood. Years later, Rachel would refuse to speak of those nights, her silence a scar deeper than words. For me, the dark remained a foe, a realm where eyes waited, unseen but eternal. Liberty Street had taught us its first lesson. We were never alone, and the dark was its domain. Some shadows never fade. They watch, and you carry their gaze forever. In the spring of 1995, Liberty Street wove its malice into the fabric of our daily lives, its presence subtle yet relentless. Our home, newly expanded with my grandfather's skilled hands, stood as a testament to quality: thick insulation, sturdy walls, and a heating system that should have kept us warm. But the house defied logic, conjuring cold that seeped into our bones, a chill that no furnace could banish. My family moved through our routines, unaware at first of the unnatural frost that marked us as its own. Feel that cold now, the way it clings to your skin, a whisper of something beyond. The kitchen was our gathering place, its linoleum floor bright under the morning sun. My mother prepared breakfast, her hands deft with pancake batter, the air filled with the scent of syrup and coffee. Rachel and I sat at the table, our legs swinging, crayons scattered across a coloring book. My father sipped his coffee, his newspaper open, the day unfolding like any other. Then, without warning, the warmth drained from the room as if an invisible doctor had opened to a winter no one else could see. My breath misted faintly, a thin veil in the air, and Rachel shivered, her crayon pausing mid-stroke. "It's cold," she said, her voice small, her eyes darting to the windows, still sealed, tight. "You're there, aren't you, caught in that sudden frost, searching for its source?" My mother frowned, her spatula hovering above the griddle, her own breath visible now. She checked the thermostat, its needle steady, the heater humming softly. In the background, "It's fine," she said, but her tone wavered, her fingers brushing her arms as goosebumps rose. My father lowered his paper, his brow creased, but he said nothing, his silence a shield against the inexplicable. The cold lingered, sharp and unnatural, wrapping us in its grip. I pulled my sweater tighter, my skin prickling, a sense of unease settling deep within me. The pancakes grew cold on our plates, the syrup congealing, the morning's warmth a distant memory. Some chills aren't just weather, they're warnings, etched in the air you breathe. The points of cold came without pattern, striking at random. One evening, as I played with blocks in my room, the air turned icy, my fingers numbing as I stacked the wooden shapes. I called for my mother, my voice trembling, and she found me shivering, her own breath misting as she knelt beside me. "It's nothing," she said, but her eyes betrayed her, scanning the room for a cause she couldn't find. Another time, Rachel woke in her crib, her cries sharp in the night, her small body curled against a frost that blanketed her room alone. My mother wrapped her in blankets, her hands shaking, but the cold followed, a specter that mocked our efforts. Imagine that despair, the way it chills your heart, knowing no warmth can fight it. Years later, I'd sleep in a jacket, layers of blankets no match for Liberty Street's icy touch. The cold wasn't just physical, it was a presence, a force, that drained our strength, our hope. My mother bore it silently, her face growing paler with each unexplainable frost, her denials weakening. My father, untouched by the chill, grew distant, his skepticism a wall between us. Rachel and I learned to dread those moments, our childish games abandoned when the air turned against us. Liberty Street's cold was a reminder. We were intruders in its domain, and it would never let us forget. Some colds linger, don't they? Freezing your soul long after the air warms. The summer of 1996 draped Liberty Street in a restless hush, its nights thick with an unseen presence that stirred my sleep. I was 5, my small world confined to the walls of my bedroom, where toys lay scattered and blankets formed a fragile shield against the dark. The house, now fully renovated, should have felt like home, but its shadows held secrets that whispered in the quiet hours. One night I awoke abruptly, my heart racing, the air heavy with a stillness that felt alive. Something was in my room, and it wasn't a dream. Enter that moment now. Feel the pulse of the unknown, the way it holds you captive. My bed faced the door, its frame a faint outline in the dim glow of a distant street lamp filtering through the curtains. The room was silent, but not empty. Something stirred in that silence, a presence that pressed against my chest, urging my eyes to the doorway. I sat up, my blanket slipping, my breath shallow as I stared into the gloom. The air grew colder, not the sharp chill of winter, but a soft, cloying cold, like breath from another world. Then she appeared, a woman, her form gliding through the open door, her movement smooth, almost liquid, as if time itself bent around her. See her now. Her shape both familiar and alien, a shadow that doesn't belong. She was built like my mother, her silhouette echoing the curves I knew, but her face was older, lined with years I couldn't comprehend. Her hair hung loose, silver, in the faint light, and her eyes, those eyes, held a gentle sorrow, a quiet knowing that rooted me to the spot. She didn't walk so much as drift, her steps silent, her presence filling the room with a weight that stole my voice. In the span of a heartbeat, she crossed the few feet to the foot of my bed, her gaze never leaving mine. I wanted to scream, to call for my mother, but my throat closed, my body frozen in a trance of awe and terror. You're caught in her stare, aren't you? Unable to look away, unable to move. She stopped, her form shimmering faintly as if caught between worlds. Her lips curved in a small, tender smile, not threatening but unnerving, a gesture that spoke of a life long past. I blinked, my eyes burning, and in that instant, she was gone. The air rushing back into the room, the cold dissipating like a sigh. My scream broke free, raw and desperate, tearing through the silence as I stumbled from my bed, my bare feet slapping the cold floorboards. I ran to my parents' room, my heart pounding, my voice choking on the words. "Mom!" I cried, collapsing into her arms. She held me, her touch warm but trembling, her voice soothing but strained. "It's just a dream," she said, but her eyes darted to my doorway, betraying her doubt. Some dreams aren't dreams, are they? They linger, blurring the line between waking and sleep. The old woman returned in the years that followed, her presence a quiet constant in Liberty Street's chaos. Sometimes I'd catch a glimpse of her in the corner of my eye, a fleeting shadow by the rocking chair in the living room. My mother saw her too, though she admitted it only later. Her voice hushed as she described the woman sitting, her hands folded, her gaze distant yet kind. Unlike the house's other terrors, she never harmed us. Her touch, when it came, soft like a grandmother's caress, fleeting but unmistakable. Yet her presence unnerved me, a reminder that Liberty Street held lives we couldn't know, stories we couldn't escape. Rachel, too young to name her, would point to empty corners, her small voice trembling. "Lady." My mother's face would pale, her silence louder than words. Imagine living with her, a ghost who watches, who knows you but never speaks. Years later, when we'd fled the house, my mother and I spoke of her, piecing together the fragments of her visits. She was the only spirit who seemed to belong, not to Liberty Street's malice but to a time before, a life lost to its walls. Her gentle sorrow haunted me more than the house's violence, a mystery that lingered in my dreams, her face fading, but never forgotten. Liberty Street had shown me its first ghost, and she marked me with a truth I couldn't shake. The dead were with us, and some were kinder than the living. Some ghosts don't frighten, they sorrow, and you carry their grief forever. Eric Robinson was the kind of kid who walked with a swagger, his grin sharp and his words sharper, a first grader who ruled the playground with confidence. In the fall of 1996, when I invited him to sleep over at Liberty Street, his eyes lit up, eager for a night of video games and bravado. I was 5, desperate for a friend to share the house's secrets, hoping his boldness might shield me from its shadows. We pitched a tent in the basement, a canvas fortress filled with laughter and the glow of a Super Nintendo screen, unaware that the house was waiting, its presence coiled in the dark. Step into that night now. Feel the joy that blinds you, the high, danger you can't yet see. The basement was our kingdom, its concrete floor covered with a faded rug, the air thick with the scent of dust and old cardboard boxes. We sprawled on sleeping bags, our fingers flying over controllers, the game's music a cheerful shield against the house's quiet. Eric's laughter echoed, loud and fearless, as he boasted about beating me in Mario Kart. My parents were upstairs, their voices a distant murmur, leaving us to our world of pixels and snacks. Rachel, too young for our games, slept in her room, the house deceptively calm. For a moment, Liberty Street felt like any home, its malice hidden beneath our childish joy. You're laughing too, aren't you? Caught in that fleeting warmth, oblivious to what's coming? As midnight approached, we dimmed the lights, the tense fabric glowing faintly from a flashlight I'd hung inside. Eric, still buzzing with energy, sprawled across his sleeping bag, his voice teasing as he recounted schoolyard triumphs. I grinned, my guard down, the house's terrors momentarily forgotten. Then the air shifted, a subtle change that prickled my skin, like the moment before a storm breaks. Eric's voice faltered, his eyes darting to the tense entrance where the basement stretched into shadow. The flashlight flickered, its beam wavering, casting jagged shapes on the canvas. Feel that shift, the way the world tilts, revealing what hides in the dark. Footsteps began, heavy and deliberate, pacing the basement floor beyond our tent. Not the soft tread of my parents, but something else. Methodical, purposeful, circling us. Eric sat up, his bravado crumbling, his breath shallow. "What's that?" he whispered, his voice tight. I shook my head, my heart pounding, knowing Liberty Street was awake. The footsteps grew closer, pausing just outside the tent, the air thick with a presence that pressed against us. Then a low hum filled the space, not a voice but a vibration, like laughter from a throat long silent. Objects in the basement shifted, boxes scraping, a chair tilting, the rug bunching as if pulled by unseen hands. You're trapped now, surrounded by sounds that shouldn't exist, a house that knows your fear. Eric's eyes widened, his face pale in the flickering light, his hands clutching the sleeping bag. "It's your dad, right?" he said, his voice desperate. But I knew my father was asleep upstairs, his snores faint through the ceiling. The footsteps resumed, crossing the basement, stopping at the tent's flap. The canvas rippled, as if brushed by something passing too close, the air growing colder, heavier. Eric scrambled backward, his breath hitching, his eyes fixed on the entrance. The hum returned, louder now, weaving through the footsteps, a chorus of unseen watchers. I grabbed the flashlight, its beam shaking in my hands, but it revealed nothing, just shadows that seemed to writhe. Some terrors don't need a face, they suffocate you, unseen but undeniable. Morning came, harsh and unforgiving, the basement silent once more. Eric was up at dawn, his bag packed, his face drawn, his swagger gone. "I'm going home," he mumbled, avoiding my eyes, his voice flat. I asked why, confused by the shift, our night of fun now a fractured memory. "I heard things," he said, his words clipped, his gaze distant. "All night, people walking, talking, moving stuff. After your dad went to bed." He left without another word, the door closing behind him, a barrier between us. Eric never returned, his hostility resurfacing at school, his taunts now laced with references to Liberty Street. My mother, hearing of it later, exchanged glances with me, her silence heavy with understanding. Liberty Street had claimed another, marking Eric with a fear he'd never shake. Some nights change you, don't they? They steal your courage and you carry their weight forever. Rachel and I were sprawled across the living room floor of Liberty Street one lazy afternoon in 1997, our voices raised in a playful argument over whose turn it was to play Super Mario. I was 6, Rachel nearly 5, our world a tangle of toys and sibling rivalry. the house around us a deceptive backdrop of normalcy. The television flickered, its bulky frame dominating the room. A small VCR built into its base where we swapped game cartridges with practiced ease. We laughed, shoving each other lightly, the carpet warm beneath us, unaware that Liberty Street was poised to turn our game into a puzzle of fear. Join us there now. Feel the innocence of that moment, the shadow that waits to strike. The living room was our haven, its faded wallpaper and sagging couch a familiar comfort. My mother was in the kitchen, the faint clatter of dishes drifting through the open doorway while my father was at work, his absence a quiet norm. Rachel, her pigtails bouncing, clutched the Nintendo controller, her eyes bright with defiance. "It's mine," she insisted, her voice sharp but teasing. I lunged for it, giggling, our scuffle a dance of childish glee. The television hummed, the game's cheerful music looping, a shield against the house's undercurrent of unease. We'd left a stack of cartridges on the coffee table, their plastic cases glinting in the sunlight streaming through the window. "You're laughing too, aren't you?" Caught in that carefree joy, blind to the house's intent. Our game paused when Rachel, triumphant, slotted a new cartridge into the console, her fingers nimble. We settled back, ready for another round, when my mother called us for lunch. "Leave it," she said, her voice warm but firm, and we scampered to the kitchen, our argument forgotten. The television stayed on, its screen glowing faintly, the room silent save for the hum of the console. We ate quickly, eager to return, our plates cleared in record time. But when we stepped back into the living room, the air felt different, thicker, charged, as if the house had exhaled a secret in our absence. Feel that change, the way the familiar twists, turning your home into a stranger. Rachel reached for the controller, her brow furrowing as the screen flickered, the game frozen. "What's wrong?" she muttered, tapping the console. I knelt, beside the television, my fingers brushing the VCR slot, expecting a loose cartridge. Instead, I found the slot jammed, the cartridge wedged deep inside, its plastic case cracked as if forced into a space too small. "Rachel," I accused, my voice sharp, assuming her haste had caused the damage. "I didn't," she shot back, her eyes wide, her hands raised in protest. We stared at the television, its screen now dark, the cartridge an impossible intruder. In the VCR's delicate mechanism. You're staring too, puzzled by that violation, sensing something more. My mother joined us, her face creasing with concern as she examined the television. "How did this happen?" she asked, her voice low, her fingers probing the slot. The cartridge was lodged tight, its edges splintered, as if driven by a force beyond our childish hands. Rachel and I exchanged glances, our earlier fight replaced by a shared unease. "I swear I didn't," Rachel whispered, her voice trembling, her certainty shaking me. I believed her, my own guilt fading. I'd broken toys before, but this felt different, deliberate, a taunt from Liberty Street itself. My mother called a repairman who extracted the cartridge with tools, his brow furrowed. "Never seen this," he said, shaking his head, the television restored but scarred. "Some acts aren't accidents, are they? They're messages carved by unseen hands." The incident lingered, a crack in our sense of safety. Rachel and I avoided the television for days, our games abandoned, the living room no longer a haven. My mother's eyes grew wary, her glances at the television sharp as if expecting it to act again. Years later, we'd see the cartridge as another of Liberty Street's games, a poltergeist's play that marked our home as its own. Rachel, always more careful than I, bore the blame unfairly, her trust in the house shaken. Liberty Street had turned our joy into fear. its touch a reminder that nothing was ours, not even our games. Some traps are subtle, aren't they? They bind you to a house that plays to win. My family lived by order, a necessity carved into us by the chaos of Liberty Street in the winter of 1997. My mother, especially, was meticulous, her hands arranging our home with a precision that bordered on obsession. Every remote, every book, every chair had its place, a bulwark against the house's creeping disorder. Rachel and I, at 6 and 5, followed her lead, our small hands tidying toys and clothes under her watchful eye. The living room with its sagging couch and cluttered shelves was her domain, a space she fought to keep ours. But Liberty Street had other plans, its unseen hands reshaping our world in defiance of her control. Walk through that room now. Feel the order you cling to, the chaos that waits to unravel it. The afternoon was crisp, the sunlight slanting through the windows, casting long shadows across the carpet. My mother moved with purpose, her cloth wiping down surfaces, her eyes scanning for anything out of place. Rachel and I trailed behind, stacking books and folding blankets, our chatter filling the air with a fragile normalcy. The television remote rested in its wicker basket on the coffee table, its buttons worn from use. The Nintendo controllers, neatly coiled, lay beside it, their cords a testament to my mother's insistence on tidiness. "Everything in its place," she said, her voice firm but warm, her hands pausing to straighten a picture frame on the wall. "You see her effort, don't you? The way she fights to keep the house hers, unaware it fights back." We left the room. For dinner, the kitchen bright with the scent of roasted chicken and steamed vegetables. My father, home from work, sat at the head of the table, his presence a quiet anchor. The meal was brief, our plates cleared, and we returned to the living room eager to resume our evening. But the room had changed, its order fractured. The remote was gone from its basket, now buried deep in the couch cushions across the room, its plastic cool to the touch. The Nintendo controllers, once coiled, sprawled across the floor, their cords tangled as if tossed. My mother froze, her eyes narrowing, her breath catching. "Who moved this?" she asked, her voice sharp, her gaze sweeping over Rachel and me. Feel that moment, the way certainty crumbles, replaced by a creeping dread. Rachel shook her head, her pigtails swaying, her eyes wide with innocence. "Not me," she said, her voice small but certain. I echoed her, my own confusion mirroring hers, knowing we'd left the room untouched. My mother's face tightened, her hands trembling as she retrieved the remote, her fingers brushing the cushions as if searching for answers. The picture frame she'd straightened hung crooked now, its glass glinting in the fading light. A book, neatly shelved, lay open on the floor, its pages splayed, as if read by unseen eyes. The chair by the window had shifted, its legs askew, marking the carpet with faint indentations. "You're searching too, aren't you? For a reason that doesn't exist, a truth the house won't give." The disturbances grew bolder, a daily assault on our sense of control. My mother's obsession deepened, her mornings spent checking every corner, her evenings cataloging each misplaced item. Drawers would open in the night, their contents rearranged, toys spilling onto the floor. Pictures fell from walls, their frames undamaged but their positions mocking our efforts. The couch itself seemed to wander, its bulk shifting inches from its place, leaving faint tracks in the carpet. Rachel and I grew wary, our play subdued, our eyes darting to corners where shadows lingered. My father, untouched by the house's games, dismissed it as carelessness, his words a wedge between us. "Some battles are fought alone, aren't they? Against a foe that laughs at your defiance?" My mother's face grew pale, her eyes haunted, her hands never still as she fought to reclaim her domain. "This house," she'd whisper, her voice breaking when she thought we couldn't hear. Years later, she'd confess the toll it took, the nights she lay awake dreading the next violation. Rachel and I carried the weight too, our childhood marked by a house that moved against us. Liberty Street wasn't just haunted, it was a predator. Its every act a claim on our lives, a reminder that order was an illusion it could shatter at will. Some houses don't rest, they play, and you are their game. The fall of 1999 found me fragile, my lungs betrayed by asthma triggered by a flooded basement at Liberty Street. At 8 years old, I clung to routine to anchor my nights, my bedroom a sanctuary of soft light and steady hums. The air purifier, a bulky machine perched on a plastic drawer set, was my lifeline, its drone a shield against the mold that lingered in the air. I'd settle into bed, the fan spinning lazily above, the purifier's rhythm lulling me toward sleep, unaware that the house was poised to shatter my fragile peace with a violence I couldn't fathom. Lie in that bed now, feel the comfort you trust, the menace that waits to strike. My room was a haven of order, its walls adorned with posters, my toys neatly tucked into the drawers beneath the purifier. The machine, heavy and round, weighed nearly 10 pounds, its short cord plugged into a wall socket behind the drawers, secure and unmoving. The basement flood had left its mark, a faint musty scent that the purifier battled nightly, its hum blending with the fan's soft whirl, drowning out the house's whispers. I'd pull the blankets high, my breath still wheezy from the day's exertions, my eyes heavy as I drifted off. The night felt safe, a rare gift in Liberty Street's domain, but the house never slept, its malice ever watchful. You're drifting, too, aren't you? Lulled by that hum, blind to the shadow that stirs. Sleep came deep and dreamless, but the house had other plans. The purifier's hum faltered, its steady drone cutting off, plunging the room into a silence that jolted me, awake. My eyes snapped open, my heart racing, the darkness thicker than before as if it had weight. Before I could process the quiet, a force struck the side of my bed. A heavy impact that shook the frame, the mattress trembling beneath me. I gasped, my breath catching, my body rigid with fear as I stared into the gloom. The air was charged, heavy with a presence that pressed against my chest, urging me to stay still. Feel that terror, the way it roots you, a prey in the dark. My parents' footsteps pounded down the hall, their voices sharp with alarm as they burst into the room, the light switch flooding the space with harsh clarity. There, beside my bed, lay the air purifier, its bulk sprawled on the floor, its cord unplugged and coiled beside it, as if flung with purpose. The plastic drawers stood upright, untouched, their contents undisturbed, defying the machine's fall. My mother's face drained of color, her hands trembling as she knelt beside the purifier, her fingers brushing its surface, searching for answers. "How?" she whispered, her voice breaking, her eyes meeting mine, wide with shared dread. "My," Father frowned, his gaze sweeping the room, his silence heavy with doubt. "You're searching too, puzzled by that impossible act, sensing the house's intent. The purifier's fall was no accident. Its weight, its secure perch, the unplugged cord, none of it made sense. I hadn't moved, my blanket still tucked around me, my body too small to dislodge such a machine. Rachel, asleep in her room, was untouched, but the house's message was clear. No sanctuary was safe, no routine sacred. My mother's hands shook as she plugged the purifier back in, its hum resuming, a hollow comfort. She stayed with me that night, her presence a fragile shield, her eyes darting to the drawers, wary of their stillness. Some threats don't need a face, do they? They strike and you're left with their echo. The incident marked me, a crack in my sense of safety. My nights grew restless, the purifier's hum now a reminder of Liberty Street's power. My mother's vigilance deepened, her mornings spent checking my room, her evenings haunted by the memory of that fall. Years later, she'd confess her fear, her voice low, admitting she'd seen the house's malice in that act. Rachel and I learned to tread lightly. Our trust in our home eroded. Liberty Street had shown its strength, its ability to turn our defenses against us, a predator that played with cruel precision. Some houses don't forgive. They punish, and you carry their mark forever. As dusk settled over Liberty Street in the spring of 2000, I stood in my bedroom preparing for sleep, my movements slow and deliberate. At 8 years old, I was accustomed to the house's subtle terrors, but the routine of bedtime offered a fleeting sense of control. My pajamas were soft against my skin, the air warm with the fading heat of the day, the room lit by a single lamp casting a golden glow. The closet door loomed before me, its wooden surface adorned with a penguin shirt, pinned there as a relic of a younger me. Its black and white design a quiet reminder of simpler times. I glanced at it, my mind elsewhere, unaware that Liberty Street was about to weave a new horror into my nights. Step into that room now. Feel the calm you cling to, the dread that lurks beneath. The bedroom was my refuge, its walls papered with memories, posters of superheroes, a shelf of books, a bed piled with blankets. The penguin shirt, too small for my growing frame, hung proudly, its fabric worn but cherished, the penguin's beak curved in a playful grin. I'd loved it once, its softness a comfort during colder days, now preserved by my mother's gentle hand. I folded my day clothes, placing them on a chair, my eyes drifting to the shirt, its presence familiar, unremarkable. The lamp flickered, faintly, the blinds slicing the light into thin bands across the floor, the house quiet save for the distant murmur of my parents' voices downstairs. You're settling in too, aren't you? Trusting that quiet, blind to its deception? The shirt stirred, not a sway from a passing breeze, but a living motion, as if it drew breath. The penguin's chest swelled, slow and deliberate, then sank, the cotton rippling like skin over muscle. My heart stopped, my eyes locked on the impossible sight, my body rooted to the floor. The room's warmth drained away, replaced by a cloying chill that wrapped around me, the air thick with a presence that seemed to pulse in time with the shirt. The penguin's eyes, mere stitches, gleamed with an unnatural light, its grin twisting into something knowing, almost cruel. The fabric breathed again, faster, the motion hypnotic, pulling me into a trance of fear and fascination. See it now, that living thing, the way it mocks your reality, drawing you into its gaze. I called for my mother, my voice cracking, a desperate cry that shattered the silence. She hurried in, her footsteps heavy, her face etched with worry as she followed my trembling finger to the closet door. The shirt moved again, its rhythm steady, the penguin's chest rising and falling as if possessed by a heartbeat not its own. It's breathing, I stammered, my words barely audible, my eyes wide with terror. My mother's breath caught, her hands clutching my arm, her grip tight enough to bruise. It's the blinds, she said, her voice shaking, her eyes fixed. On the shirt, her lie as fragile as glass. She approached the door, her steps faltering, her hand hovering near the fabric, as if afraid to touch it. The shirt stilled, its motion ceasing. The penguin's grin benign once more, but the chill lingered, a silent accusation. You feel that denial, don't you? The way it crumbles before the truth. My mother sat with me that night. Her presence, a shaky anchor, her eyes darting to the closet, wary of its stillness. She repeated her lie, insisting it was light and shadow. Her voice hollow, her hands clasped to hide their trembling. Rachel, asleep in her room, was spared, but her quiet unease in the days that followed mirrored our own. Years later, my mother would admit the truth, her voice low, confessing she'd seen the shirt's unnatural life, her lies a shield against a horror she couldn't face. The penguin shirt stayed, a fixture I couldn't remove, its stillness a taunt from Liberty Street, a reminder that even the inanimate could harbor malice. Some things don't stay dead, do they? They live, and you carry their shadow forever. Mother's Day morning in 2000 dawned soft and quiet at Liberty Street. The kitchen bathed in the gentle light of early sun. I was 8, perched on a stool at the bar counter, my hands busy with a new playset of military vehicles, their plastics, wheels rolling across the linoleum. The house felt still, its usual terrors muted, the air warm with the promise of a day meant for celebration. My mother slept upstairs, her rest a rare gift, while Rachel and my father were yet to stir. I played alone, lost in the clatter of tiny tanks, unaware that Liberty Street was about to unveil a specter that would shift our understanding of its hauntings. Sit at that counter now, feel the innocence of play, the shadow that glides unseen. The kitchen was a familiar stage, its counters gleaming, the scent of last night's dinner lingering faintly. My playset sprawled before me, a battlefield of imagination, the vehicles arranged in precise formations. The bar counter, high and wide, separated the kitchen from the living room, its edge a boundary I respected. Beyond it, the wall stretched, toward my parents' bedroom door, a window opposite framing the backyard's green. I hummed softly, my focus on the toys, the morning's peace a fragile shield against the house's darker truths. The clock ticked steadily, its rhythm a comfort, the house silent save for my own small sounds. You're lost in that game too, aren't you? Blind to the presence that moves through your world. A flicker of movement caught my eye, a subtle shift in the light near the wall. I glanced up, my hands pausing, my breath catching as a form took shape. A white, translucent mass, shapeless yet defined. Like a torso stripped of limbs and head, it hovered 3 feet above the floor, its edges shimmering, a specter that seemed to absorb the light around it. I froze, my heart pounding, my eyes locked on the thing I'd later call the blob. It moved silently, gliding from my parents' door toward the window, its path unerring as if tracing a route etched in time. The air grew heavy, a chill seeping into my bones, the kitchen's warmth fading as the specter passed. See it now, that formless thing, the way it defies your understanding, pulling you into its silent march. The blob reached the window, its form dissolving into the light, leaving the air quivering in its wake. I sat rigid, my toys forgotten, my breath shallow as I stared at the empty space. The clock ticked on, oblivious, but the kitchen felt altered, as if the specter had left a trace of itself behind. I ran to my mother's room, my voice trembling as I shook her awake, my words spilling out in a rush. "I saw something," I said, my hands clutching her arm, my eyes wide with fear. She sat up, her face creasing with concern, her voice gentle, but strained. "It's your imagination," she said, but her eyes darted to the kitchen, her doubt betraying her words. I drew her a picture, my crayons shaking. The blob's form crude but unmistakable, a white, limbless shape against the wall. You feel her doubt, don't you? The way it wrestles with the truth she fears? My mother's dismissal softened, her voice shifting as she studied my drawing. "Maybe it's a guardian angel," she suggested, her words a tentative bridge to something she couldn't name. I clung to that idea, a small victory against the house's terrors, but the blob's presence lingered, a mystery that haunted my days. Rachel, too young to witness, sensed my unease, her play quieter, her glances wary. Years later, my mother would admit her struggle, her voice low, confessing she'd felt the blob's passage too, its silent march a sign of lives replayed within Liberty Street's walls. The blob was no angel, but a fragment of time, a residual, haunting that marked our home as a stage for the past. Some visions don't fade, do they? They linger, binding you to a house that holds its dead. On a warm summer afternoon in 2000, my mother drove down the quiet stretch of Liberty Street, her hands steady on the wheel, the hum of the van's engine a familiar comfort. She'd run errands, her mind on groceries and bills, the day unremarkable. In its routine, the house loomed ahead, its pale siding deceptively ordinary, the elementary school across the street silent in the summer haze. As she pulled into the driveway, her eyes caught a fleeting figure, a girl small and familiar peeking from behind the large oak tree in the side yard, her pigtails unmistakable. My mother smiled, assuming it was Rachel, my 6-year-old sister, playing a game of hide and seek. But Liberty Street had other plans, weaving a deception that would unravel her sense of reality. Ride with her now, feel the warmth of that moment, the chill of what's to come. The driveway gravel crunched under, the tires, the van slowing as my mother leaned forward, her smile softening. "Rachel," she called, her voice light, expecting a giggle, a scamper from behind the tree. The girl vanished, her form slipping away as if swallowed by the oak's shadow. My mother frowned, her hands tightening on the wheel, a flicker of unease stirring within her. She parked, her movements quick, her eyes scanning the yard as she stepped out, the air thick with the scent of cut grass and something sharper, unplaceable. The tree stood alone, its branches still, no trace of the girl, no sound of childish laughter. You see that emptiness, don't you? The way it twists your certainty, hinting at something wrong? My mother rounded the tree, her footsteps soft, her heart quickening as she found only grass and roots, the yard open and bare. She glanced toward the house, its windows dark, then across the street, where the school's playground lay 300 yards away, enclosed by a chain-link fence. There, through the haze, she saw us, Rachel, Uncle John, and me, running and laughing, carefree in the summer sun. Rachel's pigtails bounced, her voice clear in the distance, her presence undeniable. My mother's breath stopped, her body rigid, her eyes darting back to the tree, now silent, mocking. The girl she'd seen wasn't Rachel, but something else, a mimic that wore her daughter's face, a specter we'd later call Ursula. Feel that shock, the way it fractures your world, revealing a truth you can't grasp. She stumbled back to the van, her hands trembling, her face drained of color, the groceries forgotten in the back seat. Inside the house, she moved mechanically, her eyes avoiding the windows, her voice tight as she called us in from the playground. Rachel bounded inside, her cheeks flushed, oblivious to the terror that gripped our mother. I followed, sensing her unease, my own questions unformed but heavy. "Were you by the tree?" she asked Rachel, her voice low, her gaze searching. Rachel shook her head, her eyes wide with confusion, her innocence a stark contrast to the shadow that had fooled our mother. My mother's silence was deafening, her hands clasped to hide their shaking, her mind wrestling with the impossible. "You're wrestling too, aren't you? Caught between what you saw and what can't be." Ursula's presence grew in the months that followed, her mimicry a cruel game that haunted our home. My mother would pause in doorways, her eyes catching a girl's shape in the corner of her vision. only to find Rachel elsewhere, her laughter echoing from another room. The side yard became Ursula's domain, the oak tree her stage, where she'd appear, a fleeting shadow that vanished when approached. Rachel, too young to name her, would grow quiet, her play subdued, as if sensing the imposter's gaze. I felt it too, a prickle of unease when passing the tree, a sense that something watched, waiting. My mother's fear deepened, her glances wary, her denials faltering as Ursula's deception wove itself into our lives. Some shadows wear familiar faces, don't they? They deceive, and you carry their lie forever. Years later, my mother would speak of that day, her voice hushed, confessing the terror of seeing Ursula, the girl who wasn't Rachel, the specter that mocked her love. We'd learn of Ursula's reach, her presence unbound by the house, her mimicry a taunt from Liberty Street's darker depths. Rachel, marked by the shadow that stole her likeness, grew silent about those years, her unease a scar unspoken. Ursula was no mere ghost, but a puzzle we couldn't solve, a reminder that Liberty Street held secrets that wore our faces, twisting our trust into fear. Some truths cut deeper than knives, binding you to a house that plays with your heart. In the quiet of a winter evening in 1999, Liberty Street pulsed with an unseen rhythm, its walls hiding secrets that stirred in the stillness. Our family gathered in the living room, the television casting a soft glow, its volume low as we settled. To the night, Brady, our loyal mutt, lay curled in his crate by the couch, his snores a steady comfort, his presence a rare anchor in the house's chaos. At 8 years old, I leaned against my mother, her arm warm around me, while Rachel, 6, doodled on a sketch pad, her crayons scattered. My father read in his armchair, the rustle of his newspaper blending with the hum of the heater. Then a sharp bark pierced the calm, echoing from the basement, a sound that wasn't Brady's yet carried his timbre, chilling us in its impossible familiarity. Gather in that room now, feel the warmth of family, the dread that breaks through. The living room was our refuge, its worn carpet and sagging couch a testament to years of use, the air thick with the scent of popcorn and fading daylight. Brady's crate, a sturdy metal frame, stood by the couch. Its door latched, his blanket rumpled beneath him. The basement door, sealed with a baby gate to keep Brady out, loomed at the edge of the room, its wood weathered, its threshold a boundary we trusted. The bark came again, louder, more insistent, reverberating from below, a call that sent a shiver down my spine. My mother's arm tightened, her eyes darting to Brady, who stirred in his crate, his head lifting, his ears perked but silent. "That's not him," she whispered, her voice low, her gaze fixed on the basement door. "You hear it too, don't you? That sound that shouldn't be, twisting your sense of safety?" My father lowered his paper, his brow furrowed, his skepticism a familiar shield. "Brady's right here," he said, his tone firm. But his eyes betrayed a flicker of doubt as another bark echoed, sharp and urgent from the basement's depths. Rachel's crayon paused, her small face paling, her sketch pad forgotten as she clutched my mother's hand. I stared at Brady, his brown eyes meeting mine, calm yet alert, as if he sensed the imposter below. The baby gate stood firm, its plastic, unyielding, yet the barks continued, a chorus that seemed to mock our disbelief. My mother rose, her movements slow, her hands trembling as she approached the gate, her breath visible in the sudden chill that seeped from the stairwell. "Step toward that door now. Feel the cold that grips you, the presence that calls from below." The basement was forbidden territory for Brady, its damp concrete a hazard we'd guarded against since he was a pup. My mother unlatched the gate, her fingers fumbling, her eyes scanning the dark stairs as another bark rang out, closer now as if the source waited just out of sight. I followed, my heart pounding, my small frame pressed against her side, the flashlight in her hand casting a thin beam into the gloom. The basement was silent, its air heavy with the scent of mildew and something earthier, unplaceable. No Brady, no dog, only shadows that seemed to shift in the beam's light. Yet, in the corner, we found traces, scattered droppings, a puddle, urine, as if a dog had been there, defying the gate, the crate, the logic of our home. See those traces, the way they mock your reason, hinting at a truth beyond your grasp? The barks returned in the weeks that followed, a nightly ritual that haunted our evenings. Brady would stir, his head tilting as if answering a call only he could hear, his calm unnerving us. We'd find him in the basement at dawn, the gate undisturbed, his paws clean despite the mess left behind. My mother's fear grew, her eyes wary as she checked the gate. Her voice hushed as she spoke of a second dog, a shadow that played with Brady in the night. Rachel drew pictures of 2 dogs, one Brady, one vague, her crayons trembling, her silence heavy with unease. I felt it too. A prickle of dread when Brady's eyes met mine, as if he knew the ghost that shared his form. Some companions aren't living, are they? They echo, and you carry their mystery forever. Years later, my mother would confess her terror, her voice breaking as she recalled the barks, the traces, the nights she lay awake fearing the ghost dog's intent. Brady, loyal to the end, seemed untouched, his play with the unseen a puzzle we couldn't solve. Rachel's drawings faded, but her unease lingered, a scar from Liberty Street's games. The ghost dog was no mere spirit, but a fragment of the house's malice, a reminder that even our loved ones could harbor shadows. Liberty Street had woven Brady into its hauntings, marking us with a fear that lingered long after the barks fell silent. Some echoes don't fade, binding you to a house that holds its secrets close. The morning sun of autumn 2000 filtered through my bedroom window at Liberty Street, casting a warm glow over my collection of plastic soldiers scattered across the floor. At 9 years old, I was meticulous with my toys, arranging them in battles that filled my imagination with valor and strategy. I knelt beside my latest setup, my fingers tracing the tiny rifles and helmets, checking each figure's place before school. The room felt calm, the house quiet, my mother's footsteps soft in the kitchen below, Rachel's chatter a distant hum. But as I surveyed my army, a chill crept over me. The soldiers stood in a formation I hadn't made, their ranks precise, their weapons aligned as if ready for a march I didn't command. Kneel with me now. Feel the pride in your creation, the unease that stirs within. My bedroom was a fortress of childhood, its walls lined with comic books, the bed unmade but familiar, the air tinged with the faint scent of dust and plastic. The soldiers, a mix of green and tan figures, were my pride, each one placed with care the night before in a chaotic battlefield. Now, they stood in orderly rows, their bases touching, their rifles angled uniformly, a discipline that echoed tactics from a war I'd only read about. I frowned, my heart quickening, my eyes scanning the room for signs of intrusion. But the door was closed, the window latched, my toys untouched save for this unnatural order. The air grew heavier, a presence pressing against me, as if the room itself held its breath, waiting for my next move. You see that order, don't you? The way it defies your hand, hinting at a force unseen. I called for my mother, my voice sharp with confusion, my hands hovering over the soldiers, afraid to disrupt their ranks. She climbed the stairs, her face creasing with curiosity, her eyes widening as she saw the formation. "Did you do this?" she asked, her voice low. her fingers brushing a soldier's helmet, her touch hesitant as if it might burn. I shook my head, my throat tight, my certainty shaken by the precision before us. The soldiers weren't just moved, they were arranged. With intent, their lines mirroring images from my World War I books. Their gear subtly altered. Tiny gas masks shifted to their chests, a detail I hadn't crafted. My mother's breath caught, her hand pulling back, her eyes darting to the corners of the room, sensing the same presence I felt. Feel that presence now, the way it watches, commanding silence, demanding respect. The soldier's influence grew bolder, its presence a shadow that haunted our nights. Days later, I woke to the sound of heavy boots pacing my room, their rhythm deliberate, military, echoing from a time long past. The air was thick, charged with the scent of leather and metal, as if the soldier brought his battlefield with him. I lay frozen, my blankets a frail shield, my eyes fixed on the darkness where the boots paused, their weight pressing the floorboards. A low voice followed, not words but commands, sharp and guttural, barking orders in a language I couldn't grasp yet felt in my bones. My mother heard it too, her footsteps rushing to my door, her flashlight beam slicing through the gloom, revealing nothing but the soldiers, still in their ranks, their plastic faces unchanged but somehow watchful. Hear those boots, the way they march through your fear, pulling you into their drill. The poltergeist's games escalated, my G.I. Joe figures, World War I relics among them, rearranged nightly, their equipment swapped, gas masks tied with precision, bayonets angled for combat. Rachel, curious but wary, avoided my room, her drawings now filled with faceless soldiers, her crayons trembling. My mother's fear deepened, her mornings spent checking my toys, her evenings haunted by the echo of those boots. My father, untouched by the soldier's presence, dismissed it as my imagination, his skepticism a wedge between us. Years later, my mother would confess her dread, her voice hushed, admitting she'd felt the soldier's gaze, his commands a warning from Liberty Street's past. The soldier was no mere ghost, but a fragment of war, a spirit that claimed our home as its battlefield, marking us with its unyielding will. Some spirits don't rest, do they? They command, and you carry their orders forever. The evening shadows stretched long across Liberty Street in the spring of 2001. The house cloaked in a deceptive calm as I made my way to the basement door. At 10 years old, I was driven by a sudden urge to retrieve a forgotten toy car from the storage bins below, a small rebellion against bedtime. The living room was dim, the television's glow fading as my parents settled upstairs, Rachel already asleep in her room. The basement door stood ajar, its frame a dark invitation, the baby gate unlatched for the night. I gripped my red Maglite flashlight, its beam a thin shield against the house's lurking terrors, unaware that Liberty Street was about to mark me with a violence I'd never forget. Descend with me now. Feel the thrill of that mission, the terror that waits in the dark. The basement stairs were steep, their wooden treads worn smooth by years of use, the air growing cooler with each step. My flashlight beam danced ahead, slicing through the gloom, revealing stacks of boxes and the damp concrete floor below. The house was silent, save for the faint hum of the furnace, a false promise of warmth in Liberty Street's cold heart. My sneakers gripped the stairs, my hand brushing the rough wall for balance, my mind fixed on the toy car, its red paint a beacon in my memory. The basement had always been a place of unease, its shadows thick with the house's secrets, but tonight I felt bold, my Maglite a talisman against the unknown. You feel that courage too, don't you? Blind to the force that watches your every step. Halfway down, the air shifted, a sudden weight pressing against my chest, as if the basement itself exhaled a warning. My foot faltered, my balance wavering, when an unseen force seized my ankle, a grip cold and unyielding like iron forged in shadow. I gasped, my flashlight slipping, its beam spinning wildly as another force struck my back, a deliberate push that sent me tumbling forward. The stairs rushed up, their edges biting into my skin, my body twisting as I fell, the world a blur of pain and darkness. I landed hard on the concrete, my breath knocked out, my head throbbing, the mag light rolling away, its light flickering in the gloom. Feel that fall, the way it steals your breath, the malice that drives it. The basement was silent, but not empty. A presence loomed, its weight crushing as if the force that pushed me lingered, savoring my pain. My vision swam, my limbs heavy, a dull ache spreading through my chest. I tried to call out, my voice a broken whisper, the darkness swallowing my words. Footsteps approached, not human but heavy, deliberate, echoing from the stairs above. My mother, alerted by the noise, her flashlight beam cutting through the haze. "What happened?" she cried, her voice sharp with panic, her hands lifting me, her fingers trembling as she checked for injuries. I mumbled, my words slurred. Something pushed me, my certainty clashing with the pain fogging my mind. You see her fear, don't you? The way it mirrors your own, grappling with a truth too cruel. My mother carried me upstairs, her arms strong despite her trembling, her face pale as she laid me on the couch. My father joined us, his skepticism a familiar wall, his voice insisting I'd tripped, his eyes avoiding the basement door. Rachel, woken by the commotion, hovered nearby, her small face etched with worry, her silence louder than words. My mother's hands shook as she pressed a cold cloth to my head, her eyes darting to the stairs, her silence heavy with understanding. The bruises on my arms, the ache in my ribs, were no accident. They were a mark, a warning from Liberty Street's unseen hand, a force that had grown bold enough to strike. Some attacks aren't random, are they? They brand you and you carry their weight forever. The fall changed me, a crack in my childhood's fragile shell. My nights grew restless, the basement a place I avoided, its stairs a gauntlet I feared to face. My mother's vigilance deepened, her mornings spent checking. The gate, her evenings haunted by the memory of my fall. Years later, she'd confess her dread, her voice low, admitting she'd felt the house's malice in that moment, a force that targeted her son. Rachel's drawings grew darker, staircases spiraling into shadow, her unease a mirror of my own. Liberty Street had shown its power, its ability to harm, a predator that struck with cruel precision, binding us to its will. Some scars aren't seen, binding you to a house that hungers for your fear. The autumn dusk of 2001 wrapped Liberty Street in a deceptive hush, the kitchen a warm haven where my family gathered for dinner. At 10 years old, I sat at the table, my fork tracing patterns in mashed potatoes, the scent of meatloaf filling the air. My mother served portions with practiced ease, her smile strained but present, while Rachel, 7, chattered about school, her pigtails swaying. My father, weary from work, nodded along, his presence a quiet anchor. The overhead light cast a soft glow, the shelves behind us lined with books and knickknacks, a familiar backdrop to our routine. Then a flicker of green caught my eye, twin orbs glowing faintly from the bookshelf, unblinking and alive, heralding a surge of terror that would engulf our home. Sit at that table now, feel the comfort of routine, the dread that pierces through, the Kitchen was our sanctuary, its linoleum floor bright, the cabinets worn but tidy, the air thick with the warmth of shared meals. The bookshelf, a sturdy oak fixture, held my mother's novels and Rachel's picture books, its top shelf cluttered with forgotten trinkets, a ceramic angel, a dusty clock. The green eyes pulsed, their light unnatural, cutting through the kitchen's, warmth like a blade. My mother froze, her serving spoon hovering, her gaze locking on the shelf, her breath shallow. "Do you see that?" she whispered, her voice trembling, her eyes wide with fear. Rachel's chatter stopped, her fork clattering, her small face turning to follow our stares, her gasp silent but palpable. My father frowned, his skepticism a fleeting shield, but even he leaned forward, his eyes narrowing as the orbs intensified, their glow casting eerie shadows across the table. "You see those eyes, don't you? The way they bore into you, stripping away your safety." The house responded, its calm shattering as a low hum filled the air. Not sound, but vibration. A pulse that seemed to emanate from the walls. The kitchen light flickered, its glow dimming, then surging, as if struggling against an unseen force. A sharp rap echoed from the wall behind the shelf, deliberate and rhythmic, like a signal from within the house's bones. My mother dropped the spoon, her hands clutching the table, her knuckles white. Rachel slid closer to her, her eyes wide, her body trembling as another rap sounded, faster now, joined by a cascade of smaller noises. Books shifting on the shelf, a toy car rolling across the floor, the cabinet doors quivering as if touched by invisible hands. The green eyes burned brighter, their gaze unyielding, as if commanding the chaos that enveloped us. Feel that chaos now, the way it surrounds you. A house alive with malice. The poltergeist's assault grew relentless, a nightly siege that turned our home into a battlefield. The eyes appeared everywhere, on walls, in corners, near the penguin shirt that hung in my room, their green light a beacon of dread. Lights switched on and off without touch, their bulbs humming with unnatural energy. Walls vibrated with rapid knocks, a Morse code of terror that kept us awake. Toys moved in the dark, their plastic forms skittering across floors, their paths defying logic. My mother's face grew pale, her eyes haunted, her mornings spent checking the house, her evenings of vigil against the unseen. Rachel clung to her drawings now filled with green orbs, her silence a mirror of our fear. My father, untouched by the eyes, grew distant, his denials a wall between us. "You're trapped in that siege, aren't you? Hounded by eyes that never blink, a house that never rests." By week's end, we retreated to my parents' room, our family huddled on their bed, the door locked against the chaos. The green eyes followed, glowing from the hallway, their light seeping under the door, their presence a constant threat. My mother held us close, her arms a fragile shield, her voice whispering prayers that faltered in the face of the house's power. Rachel's tears soaked her sleeve, her small body shaking, her fear a weight we all carried. I gripped my mag light, its red beam a futile defense, my heart pounding as the knocks grew louder. The lights flickered wildly, the house alive with a malice we couldn't escape. Years later, my mother would confess her despair, her voice breaking, admitting she'd felt the eyes gaze, their light a judgment from Liberty Street's depths. The green eyes were no mere illusion, but a force that watched, a herald of the house's wrath, binding us to its terror. Some gazes don't fade, do they? They haunt and you carry their weight forever. The summer night of 2001 draped Liberty Street in a velvet darkness, the air heavy with the scent of blooming jasmine as our family van rolled into the driveway. My mother, her hands steady on the wheel, had driven us back from a rare evening. Out, a movie at the local theater, a treat that left us buzzing with laughter. At 10 years old, I sat in the back, my sneakers tapping, while Rachel, 7, clutched a popcorn bag, her giggles echoing. My father, relaxed for once, hummed a tune, his arm resting on the seat. The house loomed ahead, its silhouette dark against the starry sky, every window black, a promise of rest after our adventure. But as we neared, a glow flickered within, every light in the house blazing, a defiance of the darkness we'd left behind. Step out of that van now, feel the joy of the night, the unease that creeps in. My mother's laughter faded, her hands tightening on the wheel, her eyes narrowing as she stared at the house. "I turned them off," she said, her voice low, her certainty a fragile shield against the impossible. We'd left in daylight, the house locked, every switch flipped down, a ritual she never skipped. The living room, kitchen, bedrooms, even the basement, all were dark when we pulled away. The house silent, its power ours to command. Now it burned with light, each window a glowing eye. The house alive with a presence that mocked our absence. My father frowned, his skepticism stirring, but even he leaned forward, his gaze uneasy as the van slowed to a stop. "You see that glow, don't you? The way it challenges your control, hinting at a will not your own." We stepped out, the gravel crunching under our feet, the night air cooler now, tinged with a sharpness that prickled my skin. My mother led the way, her keys jingling, her steps deliberate but tense as she approached the front door. Rachel clung to her hand, her popcorn bag forgotten, her eyes wide as she stared at the windows, their light harsh, unyielding. I followed, my heart quickening, the memory of our evening's joy fading under the weight of the house's defiance. The door swung open, revealing a living room bathed in light, every lamp, every ceiling fixture ablaze, the air thick with a hum that wasn't electricity but something deeper, a pulse from within the walls. Enter that house now. Feel the warmth of those lights, the coldness they conceal. My mother moved through the rooms, her hands flipping switches, her breath shallow as each light stayed on, resisting her touch. The kitchen glowed, its overhead light casting shadows that seemed to shift, the dining room's chandelier blazing despite its dusty bulbs. Upstairs, our bedrooms were alight, my desk lamp tilted as if turned by unseen hands, Rachel's nightlight pulsing with unnatural intensity. The basement door, sealed with its baby gate, leaked a faint glow from below, a place we dared not check. My father trailed behind, his voice muttering about faulty wiring, but his eyes darted to the corners, his denials faltering. Rachel's grip tightened, her voice trembling as she whispered, "Who did this?" My mother's face paled, her hands shaking as she met my gaze, her silence a confession of fear. "You feel that fear, don't you? The way it roots you, facing a house that acts alone?" The lights became a nightly ritual, a taunt from Liberty Street that followed us even when we were home. We'd return from errands, from school, to find the house AB. Midday sunlight streamed through the kitchen windows of Liberty Street in the spring of 2002, casting a golden warmth over the linoleum floor where my mother stood, folding laundry. The house was quiet, a rare pause in its relentless hauntings, the air filled with the scent of detergent and freshly baked bread. At 11 years old, I was at school, Rachel with me, our father at work, leaving my mother alone to her chores. She hummed softly, her hands moving in a steady rhythm, the basket of clothes dwindling as she worked. Then a voice broke the silence, soft and familiar, calling from the living room. "Hello, sunshine." It was my grandmother's voice, her affectionate greeting unmistakable, a sound that should have warmed her heart. but instead froze it with dread. Stand in that kitchen now. Feel the comfort of routine, the terror that shatters it. The kitchen was my mother's domain, its counters cluttered with baking supplies, the sink gleaming from her morning scrub. The living room, just beyond the far open doorway, was dim, its curtains drawn against the sun. The couch and coffee table a familiar silhouette. My grandmother lived miles away, her visits planned and cherished, her presence impossible in this moment. My mother's hand stilled, the shirt in her grip slipping, her breath catching as she turned toward the doorway, her eyes searching the shadows. "Mom," she called, her voice trembling, hoping for a surprise visit, a rational answer. The silence that followed was heavy, charged with a presence that seemed to pulse in the air, the house waiting for her to move. You hear that voice, don't you, the way it echoes love, twisting it into fear. She stepped toward the living room, her footsteps slow, her heart pounding, the laundry forgotten. The voice came again, closer now, from the corner by the bookshelf. "Hello, sunshine." It was perfect, my grandmother's warm tone, her slight southern drawl, but it carried an edge, a hollow quality that prickled my mother's skin. The room was empty, the couch untouched, the bookshelf's trinkets undisturbed, yet the air was thick, a chill seeping through the sunlight. She spun, her eyes darting to every corner, her voice sharper now. "Who's there?" No answer, but the presence grew, a weight that pressed against her chest as if the voice's owner watched unseen, savoring her confusion. Feel that confusion now, the way it traps you, a voice that shouldn't be, yet is. The mimicry became a cruel game, its voices haunting our days and nights. Rachel would hear my voice calling her name from the basement, only to find me upstairs. My presence a shock that silenced her. I'd hear my father's gruff "dinner's ready" from the kitchen, only to discover him still at work, the house dark and empty. The voices were flawless, each one a blade that cut through our trust, turning love into dread. My mother bore the brunt, her face growing pale, her hands never still as she checked rooms, her evenings haunted by the echo of my grandmother's voice. Rachel clung to her, her drawings now filled with faceless figures, their mouths open in silent calls. My father, untouched by the voices, dismissed them as imagination, his distance a growing chasm. You're haunted by those voices too, aren't you? Their familiarity a trap, their malice a chain. My mother's fear deepened, her mornings spent searching for answers, her nights a vigil against the unseen. She'd pause in doorways, her eyes wary, as if expecting another call, another lie. Years later, she'd confess her anguish, her voice breaking, admitting she'd felt the house's deceit in those voices, a power that twisted our bonds into weapons. Rachel's silence grew, her trust in our home eroded, her unease a scar we all shared. Liberty Street had turned our voices against us, a mimic that played with our hearts bind. The autumn night of 2000 cloaked Liberty Street in a suffocating darkness, my bedroom a fragile sanctuary where I sought refuge and sleep. At 9 years old, I lay beneath a pile of blankets, my body curled against the house's relentless terrors, the faint glow of a nightlight my only shield. The room was still, the air heavy with the scent of dust and the lingering echo of my plastic soldiers, their ranks a haunting reminder of the spirit that stirred within these walls. A sharp pain tore through my chest, a white-hot agony that ripped me from sleep, my eyes snapping open, my breath a ragged gasp as I clutched my shirt, certain something had pierced my heart. Lie in that bed now, feel the safety of sleep, the horror that rips it away. My bedroom was a fortress of childhood, its posters and toys a fading comfort against Liberty Street's growing malice. The nightlight cast a dim glow, its light pooling, On the floor, the closet door, a silent sentinel where my penguin shirt hung, its presence a relic of simpler fears. The pain pulsed, sharp and unrelenting, centered beneath my left pec, a burning that spread through my chest, stealing my voice. I tore at my shirt, my hands trembling, my eyes straining in the gloom, expecting blood, expecting death. The room seemed to close in, the air thick with a presence that pressed against me, cold and deliberate, as if the force that struck me lingered, savoring my terror. You feel that pain, don't you? The way it anchors you, a wound from beyond. Your world? I stumbled from bed, my legs weak, my vision blurring as I staggered to my parents' room, my voice breaking in a desperate cry. My mother woke instantly, her face draining of color as she saw my panic, her hands pulling me close, her fingers searching for the source of my pain. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice sharp with fear, her eyes wide as she lifted my shirt. The skin was unbroken, no blood, no mark, but the pain lingered, a phantom blade that burned within. My father stirred, his skepticism a familiar barrier, his voice muttering about nightmares, but my mother's grip tightened, her silence heavy with understanding. She sat with me, her hand stroking my back, her eyes darting to the darkness, as if expecting the attacker to emerge. See her fear now, the way it mirrors your own, grappling with a truth too cruel. Morning brought no relief, the pain a dull ache that woke me with a start. I stood before my mirror, my shirt lifted, my breath catching as I saw it, a deep, jagged wound beneath my left pec, its edges raw, a crimson stain seeping through the skin that had been whole the night before. The mark was precise, like a bayonet's thrust, a signature from the soldier whose presence had haunted my toys months earlier. My mother gasped, her hands trembling as she cleaned the wound, her voice hushed as she spoke of infection, her eyes avoiding mine, fearing the truth we both felt. The wound festered, its pain a constant reminder, leaving a permanent scar, a crescent that marked me as Liberty Street's own. Touch that scar, the way it binds you, a mark from a hand unseen. The attack was no accident, a deliberate act from the soldier's spirit, its L bayonet M1, a weapon forged in war, now turned against me. My mother's fear deepened, her nights spent watching my door, her mornings haunted by the wound's impossibility. Rachel, too young to grasp its meaning, grew quiet, her drawings now filled with faceless soldiers, their blades glinting. My father's denials hardened, his distance a chasm, unable to face the house's power. Years later, my mother would confess her anguish, her voice breaking, admitting she'd felt the soldier's malice in that wound, a force that targeted her son. The scar became my burden, a reminder of Liberty Street's cruelty, a mark that burned in my dreams, binding me to its wrath. Some wounds don't heal, do they? They scar and you carry their weight forever. In the cozy glow of Rachel's bedroom on a winter evening in 2001, I perched on the edge of her bed, spinning tales of Santa's elves to spark her imagination. At 10 years old, I was her storyteller, weaving a game we called elf hunting, a childish bid to tame the terrors of Liberty Street by naming its spirits as friendly helpers of Christmas. Rachel, 7, lay beneath her quilt, her pigtails fanned across the pillow, her eyes wide with wonder as I described tiny creatures hiding in our basement, giggling and whispering secrets. The room was a haven, its walls adorned with her drawings, the nightlight casting a soft pink glow, the air sweet with the scent of her strawberry shampoo. Our laughter mingled, a shield against the house's shadows, unaware that our game would summon a darkness far beyond our control. Sit on that bed now, feel the warmth of that story, the dread that waits to unfold. Rachel's bedroom was a sanctuary, its stuffed animals lined on shelves, her small desk cluttered with crayons, the window curtains drawn against the winter chill. My tales grew bolder, the elves becoming adventurers we could track, their whispers proof of magic we could capture. "Let's find them," Rachel squealed, her excitement infectious, her small hands clutching the quilt as she sat up. I grinned, my heart racing with the thrill of our plan. Pulling out my red Maglite flashlight and a tape recorder from my backpack. Treasures for our hunt. A clunky video camera, borrowed from our father, completed our arsenal. Its weight a promise of adventure. My mother's voice drifted from downstairs, her tone wary as she called, "Be careful," her unease a quiet note we brushed aside. "You're caught in that excitement too, aren't you? Eager for the hunt, blind to the house's malice?" We tiptoed to the basement door, our giggles hushed. The living room dim, its Christmas tree lights flickering like distant stars. The baby gate was unlatched, the stairs descending into a void that swallowed the Maglite's beam. The air grew colder, heavier, tinged with the damp scent of concrete and forgotten things. Rachel clung to my arm, her tape recorder ready, its red light a tiny beacon as we stepped into the basement, a labyrinth of boxes and old furniture. I started the camera, my voice a whisper as I narrated, "Elf hunt, take one." Rachel's soft hum a nervous echo. The basement was silent, its shadows thick, but the tape recorder caught something, a faint chuckle, low and guttural, not ours, rising from the darkness near the storage room. Hear that chuckle now, the way it freezes your blood, a sound that doesn't belong. We halted, our beams converging on the corner, revealing only dust and shadow. Yet the chuckle persisted, a mocking ripple that seemed to wrap around us. Rachel's breath hitched, her voice trembling. "That's not them." The air thickened, a weight pressing against us, as if the basement exhaled a silent threat. The tape recorder buzzed, capturing a whisper, not Rachel's, hissing, "Run!" My pulse raced, my camera trembling, its lens catching a subtle motion. The storage room door creaking open, its edges revealing a deeper void within. I swung the Maglite, its light faltering, but the door stood wide, a black maw inviting us, the presence growing stronger, cold and unyielding, as if it watched our every move. See that door? The way it opens? A gateway to a terror you can't name? The basement awoke with a vengeance, its spirits unleashed in a storm of chaos. Boxes shuddered, their contents spilling, toys cascading across the floor, their plastic forms skittering toward us like living things. The tape recorder screamed, its tape distorting as voices piled atop each other. Giggles, whispers, a sharp cry in a tongue unknown. Rachel dropped the recorder, her body pressed against mine, her eyes wide with terror as we backed toward the stairs. My camera captured it all. Shadows writhing, a toy soldier tumbling into the beam, its rifle glinting as if wielded. The air grew icy, a force pushing us yet holding us captive, its gaze a weight that pinned us in place. The blob's white form flickered in the lens, gliding past, its shapeless mass a silent witness to our folly. Feel that storm, the way it traps you, a house that feasts on your fear. We scrambled up the stairs, our breaths ragged, the basement's darkness clawing at our heels, the door slamming shut as we burst into the living room. My mother met us, her face ashen, her arms pulling us close, her voice quaking as she demanded, "What happened?" The tape recorder, still in my hand, played a cacophony, our voices lost in laughter, hisses, and that alien cry, proof of the spirits we'd roused. The video showed worse, doors swinging, shadows dancing, the blob's form a fleeting specter. Rachel shook, her excitement shattered, her silence a wound. My mother's resolve hardened, her eyes on the basement door, her hands checking the Gate nightly, a guardian against the house's wrath. Years later, she'd confess her fear, her voice hushed, admitting she'd felt Liberty Street's fury in our hunt, a power we dared to provoke. Rachel's drawings turned grim, basements, alive with she. The winter night of 2002 wrapped Liberty Street in an oppressive silence. The upstairs hallway a narrow path of shadows as I crept toward the bathroom. At 11 years old, I moved with caution, my bare feet brushing the worn carpet, the faint glow of a distant nightlight my only guide. The house was asleep. Rachel in her room, Brady in his crate, my parents behind their closed door. Yet the air felt charged, a tension that prickled my skin. As I passed the staircase, a pale shimmer flickered from the living room below, a ghostly light that pulsed against the walls, drawing my eyes downward into a void that stirred with memory. Walk that hallway now. Feel the quiet of the night, the dread that beckons from below. The hallway was a familiar passage, its walls lined with family photos, the staircase a steep descent into the living room's dim expanse. The shimmer grew, not electric but ethereal, casting faint shadows that seemed to writhe across the banister. My breath caught, my body frozen at the stair's edge, my eyes locked on the source. A white, translucent mass, shapeless yet vivid, hovering near the living room's far window. It was the blob, the specter I'd seen years before, gliding from the staircase's base toward the window, its edges quivering like a dream caught in moonlight. The air grew colder, a frost that seeped into my bones, the house's silence deepening, as if it held its breath in the blob's presence. See that specter now, the way it drifts through your home, a phantom that steals your peace. The blob's passage was silent, its form absorbing the faint Christmas tree lights, leaving a trail of mist that curled in the air. My heart pounded, my hands gripping the banister, my mag light left in my room, its absence a weight in my chest. The living room seemed to shift, the furniture's outlines blurring, as if the blob warped the space around it. A soft sound echoed, Brady's playful yip, not from his crate but from the basement below, as if he danced with an unseen shadow. My mother's door creaked open, her silhouette appearing in the hallway, her voice a sharp whisper. "What's down there?" She joined me, her robe clutched tight, her face paling as she saw the blob, its form dissolving into the window's glass, leaving the room darker, heavier. Feel her presence beside you, the way her fear entwines with yours, a shared terror unveiled. I turned to her, my voice trembling, my words a rush. "It's the white thing again." My mother's hand found mine, her grip fierce, her breath uneven as she stared into the now empty living room, her eyes reflecting a truth she'd long suppressed. We descended to the kitchen, the table a refuge, the air still cold, the mist lingering like a ghost's exhale. "I saw it too," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, her hands clasped to steady their shake. "This isn't normal." Her words broke a dam, a confession spilling forth. The house is haunted. The admission hung between us, a truth we'd skirted for years, now a blade that cut through our denial, sharp and undeniable. You hear that confession, don't you? The way it strips away your defenses, anchoring you to the house's curse? The blob's return was a reckoning, its silent glide a mirror to our fears. Rachel, stirred by our voices, crept downstairs, her pajamas rumpled, her eyes wide as she sensed our dread, her later drawings filled with white shapes drifting through walls. Brady's crate was empty, his presence in the basement a mystery, his unseen play a fragment of the house's secrets. My mother's fear turned to resolve, her nights now spent watching, her mornings haunted by the blob's path. My father, absent that night, rejected our truth, his disbelief a wall we couldn't breach. Years later, my mother would revisit. That night, her voice steady but shadowed, confessing the weight of naming the terror, the clarity it brought to our suffering. Liberty Street had forced our surrender, its spirits no longer shadows but truths, chaining us to its relentless legacy. Some revelations don't liberate, do they? They bind and you carry their chill forever. The winter night of 2002 cloaked Liberty Street in an eerie hush, my heart quickening as I paused outside Rachel's bedroom door, drawn by a faint rustling within. At 11 years old, I was her protector, ever vigilant in a house that thrived on fear, my bare feet silent on the hallway carpet, the dim glow of a nightlight casting long shadows. The rest of the house slept, my parents behind their door, Brady crated downstairs. But the sound from Rachel's room, soft yet insistent, stirred a dread I couldn't ignore. I gripped my red Maglite flashlight, its weight a frail comfort, my breath shallow as I eased the door open, expecting my sister's restless sleep, not the terror that awaited. Stand at that door now, feel the urge to protect, the fear that grips you tight. Rachel's bedroom was a child's haven, its walls adorned with her drawings, stuffed animals perched on shelves, the nightlight painting the room in soft pink. The rustling grew louder, a dragging sound like heavy fabric across the floor, emanating from the corner near her bed. My flashlight beam swept the room, revealing Rachel curled beneath her quilt, her breath even, unaware of the danger. But there at the bed's foot a shape emerged, a writhing mass of dark matted hair, shapeless yet alive, its edges pulsing in the dim light. We'd named it Cousin It, a jest from happier days, but its presence was a nightmare, a malevolent force that radiated cold malice. See that mass now, the way it looms, a shadow that hungers for your fear. Cousin It stirred, its hair swaying as if alive, inching toward Rachel's bed, the dragging sound a relentless claw at my senses. My pulse raced, my voice caught, my body, rooted as the specter's presence filled the room, a weight that pressed against my chest, stealing my air. The nightlight flickered, its pink glow dimming, shadows deepening as if drawn to the creature. A sudden force shoved my shoulder, cold, deliberate push that sent me stumbling forward, my flashlight beam swinging wildly. Rachel woke, her scream piercing the silence, her eyes wide with terror as she saw the hairy form, her small body scrambling back against the headboard. "It's here," she cried, her voice trembling, her hands clutching the quilt. "Feel that? Shove, the way it throws you. A force that targets your heart." My mother's footsteps thundered down the hall, her flashlight beam cutting through the darkness as she burst into the room, the specter vanishing in the sudden flood of light, leaving a chill that clung to the air. "What's happening?" she demanded, her face drained of color, her arms pulling Rachel close, her gaze sweeping the empty corner where Cousin It had stood. I stammered, my words a rush. It was the hairy thing. Rachel sobbed, her body shaking, her voice broken. "It came for me." My mother's breath hitched, her silence heavy, her eyes reflecting a fear she'd fought to bury. We retreated to her room, the door locked, the flashlight's beam a trembling shield. "It's not our imagination," she whispered, her voice quaking, her hands holding us tight, her words a confession of the house's truth. Cousin It was no child's tale, but a predator, its touch a scar we couldn't escape. You hear that confession, don't you, the way it names the nightmare chaining you to its wrath? Cousin, its terror persisted, its presence a relentless shadow that stalked our nights. Rachel would wake with bruises, her sheets twisted, claiming the hairy form had tugged her limbs. her drawings now dark with tangled shapes, their eyes glinting. I felt its menace too. A cold push in the dark, a dragging sound that trailed me through the house. My scar from the soldier's blade burning as if in kinship. My mother's fear turned to vigilance, her nights spent patrolling, her mornings haunted by the specter's reach. My father spared its wrath, rejected our truths, his denial a growing divide. Years later, my mother would recount that night, her voice steady but shadowed, confessing the weight of facing Cousin It, a force that ruled Liberty Street's darkness, marking us as its own. The specter was a tyrant, its hairy form a nightmare that bound us to the house's malevolence. Some shadows don't flee, do they? They hunt, and you carry their mark forever. The spring afternoon of 2003 warmed Liberty Street with a gentle breeze, the backyard a patch of freedom where I knelt beside my bicycle, my hands greasy from adjusting the chain. At 12 years old, I savored these moments of focus, the clink of my wrench a steady rhythm, the air rich with the scent of cut grass and blooming lilacs. Rachel played nearby, her laughter drifting as she swung on the creaky playset, Brady dozing in the shade, my parents inside the house, the day deceptively ordinary. A shadow loomed behind me, a sudden darkness that swallowed the sun's warmth, stirring a dread that froze my fingers on the wrench, as if the earth itself warned of an impending strike. Kneel by that bike now, feel the satisfaction of your work, the terror that descends unbidden. The backyard was an open haven, its patchy lawn bordered by a sagging fence, the playset's rusty chains glinting in the light, the shed's door ajar in the breeze. The shadow thickened, a writhing mass of dark matted hair, shapeless yet pulsing, its edges alive in the afternoon's glow. Cousin It, our childish name for this horror, stood before me, a malevolent force that radiated icy malice, its form towering where no figure should be. My breath caught, my wrench slipping, my eyes locked on the specter as its hair swayed like a living curtain, surging toward me with unnatural speed. Rachel's laughter faltered, her swing slowing, her voice a sharp gasp as she saw the mass, her small figure frozen on the playset. See that horror now, the way it forms, a shadow that craves your fear. Cousin. It lunged, its mass enveloping me, a low rustle like heavy fabric scraping the ground, a sound that clawed at my nerves. The air turned frigid, the warmth of the day drained, the backyard's light dimming as the specter's presence crushed the space around me. A force seized my throat, a cold, unyielding grip that tightened, lifting me from the ground, my legs kicking, my hands clawing at an invisible vice. My vision blurred, my lungs burning, the wrench falling as another shove slammed me against the shed, the wood splintering under the impact. Rachel's scream rent the air, her footsteps pounding. As she ran toward the house, her voice crying for help. Feel that grip, the way it chokes you. A force that revels in your pain. My mother burst from the back door, her face ashen, a broom in her hands as she charged toward the shed, her flashlight beam slicing through the haze, the specter dissolving, as light flooded the yard, leaving a chill that clung to my skin. What happened? She gasped, her arms pulling me up, her hands trembling as she checked my throat, her eyes wide with horror at the red marks blooming on my neck. Rachel sobbed, clinging to her, her voice broken. The hairy thing hurt him. My mother's silence was heavy, her gaze sweeping the empty yard, her fear a mirror of my own. We retreated to the kitchen, the door locked, the flashlight's beam a trembling guard. "It's not safe," she whispered, her voice quaking, her hands holding us tight, her words a confession of the house's wrath. Cousin, it was no mere shadow but a brutal predator, its assault a scar we couldn't erase. You hear that confession, don't you? The way it names the terror, binding you to its cruelty. Cousin, its violence haunted us. Its presence a relentless specter that stalked our lives. Rachel woke with nightmares, her arms bruised, claiming the mass had dragged her, her drawings now filled with hairy shapes, their tendrils alive with menace. I bore the marks too, my throat tender, my scar from the soldier's blade burning as if in kinship, a cold shove striking me in quiet moments. My mother's dread deepened, her nights spent patrolling, her mornings haunted by the specters. Reach. My father spared its wrath, dismissed our truths, his denial a growing divide. Years later, my mother would recall that afternoon, her voice shadowed, confessing the weight of facing Cousin It, a force that ruled Liberty Street's darkness, marking us as its prey. The specter was a nightmare, its hairy form a tyrant that bound us to the house's malevolence, its assault a wound that lingered in our bones. Some attacks don't heal, do they? They scar, and you carry their weight forever. The spring morning of 2003 filled Liberty Street with a soft light. The living room a haven of routine where I stood dusting the bookshelf, my cloth gliding over worn novels and trinkets. At 12 years old, I took pride in these chores, my movement steady, the air scented with lemon polish and the faint pine of last winter's tree. Rachel was at school, Brady dozed in his crate, my mother hummed in the kitchen, my father at work, the house cloaked in a deceptive calm. A chill brushed my neck, a sudden cold that seeped through the morning's warmth, stirring a dread that halted my hand, as if the room itself exhaled a warning of unseen malice. Dust that shelf now. Feel the comfort of routine, the terror that lurks beneath. The living room was a familiar sanctuary, its sagging couch draped with a quilt, the coffee table scarred, a small oval mirror propped on the shelf reflecting the room's soft glow. The chill deepened, the air thickening, a presence coiling around me like a shadow cast without light. My cloth froze, my eyes darting to the mirror, its surface rippling as if liquid, the reflection warping, my face twisting, eyes hollow, a grin not mine. A low, guttural laugh erupted, not human but cruel, echoing from the walls, a sound that clawed at my nerves. The mirror shattered, its glass exploding outward, shards raining across the floor, the laughter swelling into a chorus of mocking voices. See that mirror now, the way it breaks, a laughter that feasts on your fear. The room darkened, the morning light dimming as if swallowed, the laughter weaving through the air, now joined by a whisper, sharp and venomous. Stay. My heart pounded, my body rooted, my cloth slipping as a force shoved my chest, a cold, unyielding push that sent me staggering back, my shoulder striking the couch. Rachel's playset outside creaked, though no breeze stirred, her swing swaying as if pushed by unseen hands. My mother's humming stopped, her footsteps rushing from the kitchen, her voice sharp. "What's that?" She appeared in the doorway, her face paling as she saw the shattered mirror, the glass glinting like teeth, her eyes wide with horror as the laughter faded, leaving a silence heavier than before. Feel that push, the way it throws you, a chorus that mocks your courage. My mother knelt beside me, her hands trembling as she swept glass from my clothes, her gaze fixed on the mirror's empty frame, its wood scorched as if burned. "It laughed," I stammered, my voice breaking, my chest aching from the shove. Rachel's swing creaked louder, her voice a distant cry from the yard. "Mom!" My mother pulled me up, her arm around me as we ran outside, finding Rachel frozen by the playset, her eyes wide. "I heard it too." My mother's silence was a confession, her fear a mirror of our own, her hands clutching us as we retreated to the kitchen. The door locked, the flashlight's beam a frail shield. "It's not just us," she whispered, her voice quaking, her words naming the house's truth. The laughter was no illusion, but a malevolent force, its echo a scar we couldn't erase. "You hear that truth, don't you? The way it strips your denial, binding you to the house's wrath." The laughter haunted us, its cruel chorus a relentless specter that pierced our days and nights. Rachel woke trembling, claiming voices laughed. In her dreams, her drawings now filled with shattered mirrors, their shards glinting with eyes. I heard it too, a low chuckle in quiet rooms, a cold push in empty spaces. My scar from the soldier's blade burning as if in kinship. My mother's dread deepened, her nights spent watching, her mornings haunted by the mirror's ruin. My father, untouched by the voices, dismissed our fears, his denial a growing chasm. Years later, my mother would recall that morning, her voice, shadowed, confessing the weight of facing the laughter. A force that ruled Liberty Street's shadows, marking us as its prey. The shattered mirror was a warning, its ghostly laughter a tyrant that bound us to the house's malevolence. Some sounds don't fade, do they? They echo and you carry their chill forever. The spring noon of 2003 bathed Liberty Street in a steady light. My bedroom a quiet corner where I stood before my open closet, folding clothes with care. At 12 years old, I found order in these tasks. My hands smoothing shirts, the air scented, with lavender from a sachet and the faint warmth of sunlight through the window. Rachel was at school, Brady napped downstairs, my mother sorted laundry in the kitchen, my father at work, the house wrapped in a deceptive peace. A heavy thud echoed from the attic above, a deliberate step that shook the ceiling, stirring a dread that stilled my hands, as if the house itself harbored a presence too vast to contain. Fold those clothes now, feel the calm of your task, the terror that stirs above. My bedroom was a familiar refuge, its posters bright. The penguin shirt pinned to the closet door a faded talisman, the bed neatly made. The thud came again, slower, a measured tread that reverberated through the beams, not random but purposeful, as if someone paced the attic's dusty floor. My breath caught, my shirt slipping, my eyes fixed on the ceiling, its plaster unmarred, yet trembling faintly, as if pressed by unseen weight. A shadow flickered in the closet's depths, a vague form coalescing. A man's silhouette tall and gaunt, his eyes glinting like embers, his presence radiating cold menace. We called him the man in the attic, a name whispered in fear, but his gaze was no myth, a force that gripped my soul. See that silhouette now, the way it looms, a shadow that craves your fear. The footsteps quickened, a heavy march that shook the room, the air growing thick, a chill slicing through the noons. Warmth. My lamp flickered, its light dimming, shadows crawling across the walls. A low growl rumbled, not Brady's but deeper, woven with a whisper, sharp and commanding. "Leave." My closet shook, shirts tumbling from hangers, a cold force shoving my chest, sending me staggering back, my shoulder striking the bedpost. The ceiling groaned, dust sifting down, the man's form pressing closer through the attic's veil, his shadow spilling into the room. Rachel's scream echoed from downstairs, her footsteps pounding as she rushed home early, her voice crying, "It's up there." Feel that shove, the way it breaks you, a whisper that chains your heart. My mother's footsteps thundered up the stairs, her flashlight beam cutting through the haze as she burst into the room. The man's shadow dissolving, the footsteps silencing, leaving a frost that clung to the air. "What's happening?" she gasped, her face ashen, her arms pulling me close, her gaze sweeping the ceiling, its plaster faintly cracked, as if scarred. Rachel clung to her sobs choking, her voice trembling. I saw him in the window. My mother's silence was heavy, her eyes reflecting a terror she'd long buried. We huddled in the living room, the door locked, the flashlight's beam a frail shield. He's real, she whispered, her voice quaking, her hands clutching. Ours, her words a confession of the house's truth. The man in the attic was no tale, but a haunting force, his steps a wound we couldn't heal. You hear that confession, don't you? The way it names the horror, binding you to its malice. The man's presence lingered, his heavy steps a relentless specter that haunted our nights. Rachel woke trembling, claiming his shadow crossed her. Dreams, her drawings now filled with gaunt figures, their eyes burning through walls. I felt his menace too, a cold shove in quiet moments, a growl that followed me, my scar from the soldier's blade burning as if in kinship. My mother's dread deepened, her nights spent listening, her mornings haunted by the attic's cracks. My father, untouched by his gaze, dismissed our fears, his denial a growing chasm. Years later, my mother would recount that noon, her voice shadowed, confessing the weight of facing the man, a force that ruled Liberty Street's shadows, marking us as its prey. The man in the attic was a nightmare, his gaunt form a tyrant that bound us to the house's wrath, his steps a scar that lingered in our bones. Some terrors don't fade, do they? They stalk and you carry their weight forever. The spring noon of 2003 bathed Liberty Street in a steady light. My bedroom a quiet corner where I stood before my open closet, folding clothes with care. At 12 years old, I found order in these tasks, my hands smoothing shirts, the air scented, with lavender from a sachet and the faint warmth of sunlight through the window. Rachel was at school, Brady napped downstairs, my mother sorted laundry in the kitchen, my father at work, the house wrapped in a deceptive peace. A heavy thud echoed from the attic above, a deliberate step that shook the ceiling, stirring a dread that stilled my hands, as if the house itself harbored a presence too vast to contain. Fold those clothes now, feel the calm of your task, the terror that stirs above. My bedroom was a familiar refuge, its posters bright. The penguin shirt pinned to the closet door a faded talisman, the bed neatly made. The thud came again, slower, a measured tread that reverberated through the beams, not random but purposeful, as if someone paced the attic's dusty floor. My breath caught, my shirt slipping, my eyes fixed on the ceiling, its plaster unmarred, yet trembling faintly, as if pressed by unseen weight. A shadow flickered in the closet's depths, a vague form coalescing. A man's silhouette tall and gaunt, his eyes glinting like embers, his presence radiating cold menace. We called him the man in the attic, a name whispered in fear, but his gaze was no myth, a force that gripped my soul. See that silhouette now, the way it looms, a shadow that craves your fear. The footsteps quickened, a heavy march that shook the room, the air growing thick, a chill slicing through the noons. Warmth. My lamp flickered, its light dimming, shadows crawling across the walls. A low growl rumbled, not Brady's but deeper, woven with a whisper, sharp and commanding. Leave. My closet shook, shirts tumbling from hangers, a cold force shoving my chest, sending me staggering back, my shoulders striking the bedpost. The ceiling groaned, dust sifting down, the man's form pressing closer through the attic's veil, his shadow spilling into the room. Rachel's scream echoed from downstairs, her footsteps pounding as she rushed home early, her voice crying, "It's up there!" Feel that shove, the way it breaks you, a whisper that chains your heart. My mother's footsteps thundered up the stairs, her flashlight beam cutting through the haze as she burst into the room. The man's shadow dissolving, the footsteps silencing, leaving a frost that clung to the air. "What's happening?" she gasped, her face ashen, her arms pulling me close, her gaze sweeping the ceiling, its plaster faintly cracked, as if scarred. Rachel clung to her sobs choking, her voice trembling. "I saw him in the window." My mother's silence was heavy, her eyes reflecting a terror she'd long buried. We huddled in the living room, the door locked, the flashlight's beam a frail shield. "He's real," she whispered, her voice quaking, her hands clutching, ours, her words a confession of the house's truth. The man in the attic was no tale, but a haunting force, his steps a wound we couldn't heal. You hear that confession, don't you? The way it names the horror, binding you to its malice. The man's presence lingered, his heavy steps a relentless specter that haunted our nights. Rachel woke trembling, claiming his shadow crossed her. Dreams, her drawings now filled with gaunt figures, their eyes burning through walls. I felt his menace too, a cold shove in quiet moments, a growl that followed me, my scar from the soldier's blade burning as if in kinship. My mother's dread deepened, her nights spent listening, her mornings haunted by the attic's cracks. My father, untouched by his gaze, dismissed our fears, his denial a growing chasm. Years later, my mother would recount that noon, her voice shadowed, confessing the weight of facing the man, a force that ruled Liberty Street's shadows, marking us as its prey. The man in the attic was a nightmare, his gaunt form a tyrant that bound us to the house's wrath, his steps a scar that lingered in our bones. Some terrors don't fade, do they? They stalk and you carry their weight forever.